Hey, nerdy sports fan here. We're talking week 13 NFL action, and this week we've got the Chargers on the road, like they are every week, seeing the Denver Broncos. Man, why does this game not matter? I mean, at the beginning of the season, you had such high hopes for the Chargers because they had a great year last year. Um, and, there was some hope in Bronco land because of the new coach and the new approach. Well, didn't work out either way. Both of these teams suck a big one right now. And, man, it pains me talking about games like this. It really does. But here, let's dig into it. The Chargers have a problem with Philip Rivers. He's got a dead arm. It's gone. Guy needs to retire. And, Anthony Lynn got a couple of good seasons with him. Did well last year. I don't think the coach is the problem. I said before they fired Ken Wisenhunt that I thought that Philip Rivers was the issue. I stand by it. He's not placing the ball where it needs to go on deeper routes. He's relying on his very talented receiving core to make plays. They do. But they can't do it so consistently that bad throws are going to be negated. So there's an issue there. On the opposite side, at quarterback, the Broncos have their own kind of problems. They've got Brandon Allen, who stunk up the joint last week against Buffalo. And now they're talking about possibly putting in the rookie. They've been talking about that for weeks. Weeks and weeks and weeks and weeks. There was no real reason to put him on injured reserve in the first place. And then he comes off of injured reserve, and they got all sorts of weird practice timelines that they got to deal with, and they should have activated the guy earlier than they did. But now, only just now, are they talking about putting him in there to see what they have. That's all the fans in Bronco Land want. See what you have in the kid, so you know whether or not you're going after a quarterback in the draft. It's real simple. You're likely to have a top 10 pick. You have an outside shot at a top 5 pick. So yeah, that's quarterback land. And there's a few coming out this year that are going to be worthy of a pick that high. So you better figure out what you have in the former Missouri product that you drafted last year. This April, or it's a wasted pick. That's the issue here. The front office, led by John Elway, has looked like crap because there's always something you can point to and say, man, they're making a huge mistake there, or they made a huge mistake there. There's not a lot of consensus in the front office. By all accounts, John Elway had it worked out when they signed Vance Joseph as a coach, a couple seasons ago. Instead of that, he had a deal in place to bring Mike Shanahan back out of retirement and hopefully lure Kirk Cousins to the Broncos, because Cousins was drafted by Shanahan and he runs that sort of offense very well. So that was the thought, and he had it lined up, ready to rock. Didn't happen because the ownership situation is all sorts of screwed up. And there's a guy named Joe Ellis in the front office who has a lot of power, and he didn't want to give up any bit of that power with the signing of somebody like Mike Shanahan, who we know wants to have a lot of control. So, he puts the kibosh on that. They're dealing now with Fangio, who's a very, very good defensive coach. I mean, this is a really strong defense in Denver, in spite of their problems with personnel. But is he the guy? I don't know. I mean, Fangio's a defensive coordinator that spent his entire career up in the booth. And now he's on the sideline, which I'm sure creates a little discomfort for him, at least at this point in his head coaching tenure. And he's never been the guy in charge. He's always been the guy next to the guy in charge. So, how does he handle the role of coaching coaches? I don't. There's been a lot of questions about the offense. So maybe he's doing a good job. Maybe he isn't. Maybe it's just the offensive coordinator that's doing crap. Maybe it's nothing but personnel issues because of a non-unified front in the front office there in Denver. But there's problems. So both teams have serious issues. Serious issues. Largely related to quarterback. And we got to sift through this crap and see what the heck we're going to do as far as our fantasy teams go. Now, Keenan Allen and Mike Williams owners, I'm sorry. They're extremely good. You're going to get some sort of consistent points out of them. But, yeah, they should have had a far better year than they're having. You still put Keenan Allen out there because, who are you going to start over him in a third wide receiver position? Because that's what he is at this point. Mike Williams is, man, it's a gamble. I leave him on the bench. Melvin Gordon still hasn't really come back to full form. Austin Eckler is still really, really consistent. As far as a screen target goes, he runs the ball well when they get him involved as just a traditional runner. Austin Eckler and Melvin Gordon are both really in that flex play running back 2 range. Don't depend on them to be your primary. If they are, I'm sorry, your roster's crap. On the Denver side of things, Philip Lindsay does really, really well 1 week, really, really terrible the next, and it's because of the presence of Royce Freeman and the way they're running that offense right now. Royce Freeman will vulture enough carries away from him that really it never really makes sense to start Philip Lindsay with any sort of consistency. If you're going to put him in the lineup, he's a flex play at the absolute best. You're not depending on him for number 1 back or number 2 back sort of play. Don't put Royce Freeman out there, but definitely put Sutton out there. Sutton is he's come through as the number 1 wideout. Seems that they only needed Emmanuel Sanders to get out of the way for Sutton to prove that he can be the guy. So good for them. They found a true number 1 wideout, which is not common. Cortland Sutton can definitely take over a game. You're going to need to double team him every freaking down. But the problem is the Chargers have the defensive staff to deal with that. So are you going to start Cortland Sutton? Yes. Is he a number 1 wideout in fantasy? No. He's more like a number 3. Neither team has consistent enough tight end play, but, I guess the Chargers tight end, maybe. It doesn't matter. Both teams are really bad. I don't see it being a high-scoring affair because both teams' problem is on offense right now. If you have a different option other than a player in this game for your fantasy roster, play that guy. Because this is going to be a boring game. There's no energy behind it whatsoever. I'm really sorry for fans of both teams because both cases, your team should have been better this year. They just weren't. As far as the line goes, it doesn't matter. We still don't know who Denver's starting at quarterback, so there's a lot of questions. I still think Phillip Rivers' arm is dead, so there's questions there too. Right now, they've got Chargers as a 3-point favorite. That's odd on the road. I probably bet the Broncos in this one. It's going to be a very close game, and they're at home. So, yeah, in spite of all the questions with the quarterbacks, I would bet the Broncos because I don't see them losing. They're being given 3 points. Okay, if they lose this game, they're going to lose it very close. They're actually likely to win it, considering the Chargers are at a point in their season where they might actually start giving up. The Broncos are going to have enough young players on the team that need to prove it to their coach to not really have to worry about that as much. So check out the rest of my videos so we can talk about a game that people are going to enjoy talking about because, it's going to be good. But yeah, and check out the post-game video I just put up for the Bills and Dallas Thanksgiving Day game. If you like the content, like and subscribe as always, and I'll see you next week.